Welcome to Transformations, straight talk about life, business, and spirituality. I am so excited today because today I get to have my good friend on, Charly Emery. And me and her have been going back and forth for over a year. And what I love about her is that she's extremely passionate and spunky like me. And she really is passionate about relationships, one of her fields. And she is going to bring us a lot of wonderful information about relationships. And she's got some wonderful tips and raw, delicious information for us. So I'm really excited to have her here with us. So welcome, Charly. So
Hey,
how
Carly.
are you doing?
I'm great. It's great to see you today.
Oh my God, we've been talking for a year now. And I'm just like so thrilled to finally actually have you here with me today.
Isn't it amazing? It happens. And yet, if you think about it, how fast did that year go? I think that's the more amazing part about it.
I know, and the funny part is I am in Agora Hills, you're in Calabasas. It's not like we're that far away, and yet the two of us are the spitfirey chicks, as some people would call us, because we're just so full of spit and vinegar, some of us would call us, and we both are just really into just life and passion, and we both have very familiar subjects when it comes to relationships. And one of my things I love about you is one of your last book titles. So can you share with us your last book title?
Yes, How to Date When You're Famous.
So I think that would be a really fun thing to talk about. So we also had a little briefing we were talking about a little bit when we were talking about online dating. So actually I'd love for you to talk about a little bit about your new book though first.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it was inspired by some of my celebrity clients who came to me specifically because they were having some serious issues in the relationship realm. And you know, the funny thing about dating as a celebrity, it's actually there are some parts of it that are really different, and then there are other parts that are the same. And so one of the things that I wanted to touch on with them are the things that I see that are the most common that can get in their way. And this is actually, it's central to everybody, just a little bit different in the details. And that is, for example, a lot of celebrities, one of the problems that they run into is that they are totally aware of the fact that they're dating as a celebrity. And so they forget that they need to learn how to really understand who they are and own everything that they bring to the table. And what happens is either they haven't really discovered who they are or aren't sure or don't have that confidence to really say, hey, you know, these are the aspects of me that make me me, and they hide behind that celebrity image, which makes them very one-dimensional, or they crave that feeling of having a normal relationship like everybody else, and it's like, oh, why couldn't I just date like everyone else? And they get hung up on the fact that, you know, people have seen them on camera, read about their love lives, maybe even seen them bare their body on screen, and so then they try to minimize the fame almost like it doesn't exist to try to be this other person. And the only way to really, really date with strength is to own all the aspects of you, but you have to learn who are you behind that name? You know what I mean? Because if you can't get beyond the image and can't figure out how to intertwine it with the rest of who you are, how is somebody else going to do the same thing?
Well, I think that's a double-edged sword because I think it's also the other person. I think it's a really fascinating subject. I think someone who wants to date someone famous also needs to understand they're also real people. And I have, like you know, I've also been in the entertainment business, and I find it really fascinating being on the other side that we as people don't get that they also are real people. So it's a really fascinating subject. I think diving into both sides, you as a person coaching people that are famous, wanting to have a life where they do want to, they're yearning on some level to have a normal life, and yet they are famous, and we people dating people that are famous also being an acceptance of dating someone that's famous and dealing with that. I think that'd be a really fascinating book in some ways of literally having a book where it's coaching both sides, coaching the people that are dating people that are famous and accepting that kind of life, and coaching the people that are famous and wanting to date. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a very fascinating world.
The funny thing is in a sense, even though I wrote it mainly for women, in my first book, Thank Goodness You Dumped His Ass, it really covers that because, see, what we have to realize is the important thing and the valuable thing is to not get caught up in the details. When we get caught up in the details, we think we've never been here before and we don't know what to do, when in truth we have been. So, you know, dating someone who's famous, is no different than learning how to date someone who works third shift, or date someone who has, is an entrepreneur, dating someone who travels a lot. It's always about understanding what it is that you want within the relationship and what kind of experience you want to have. And then looking at that other person and saying, what comes with that person? And if it's fame, then it's going to be certain things that are relative to fame. If it's something else, then it's going to be all the details that are associated with that. So in truth, and like in How to Date When You're Famous, one of the things that I pointed out to them was that if they're really concerned about, meeting people who they can trust, one of the greatest pieces of information they can get is if they are trying to tell someone the other aspects about themselves and that person is only interested in their fame, they just got fantastic information about who that person is and why that person is really seeking them out, which again is fantastic. It just saved them time and energy if they're really looking for a partner they can trust.
Ooh, so you just brought up a great thing that we talked about earlier, and I just thought this would be a perfect time to bring it up. We talked about earlier when we were just talking before we went online was about online dating, and I brought up the point about online dating. And then a biggest one is people lie about their age, and for me, a big key distinction there is if they're willing to lie about their age, what else are they willing to lie about? And you just brought up something that I think it ties into that. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Well, it's all about that trust and being able to trust people. But see, what's funny is that there's so much information for us all the time that will actually help us figure out who we're dealing with if we just learn how to let go of the fear of trusting people and actually start listening more. Listening, like I've had people say to me, well, what are all the red flags, especially with online dating? What are the red flags? I said, well, the biggest red flag is how you feel as a person, because if somebody does something, says something, even if you're reading a profile, and I'm sure you've done online dating, and so have I, so I'm sure you know what this is like. You're reading this profile, and you're going along, and it sounds really good, and all of a sudden, like, your face kind of goes, you read something, and you get that little twitch, or your eyebrow, or your nose, or your lip. Those are red flags that tell you there may be a red flag. So you need to pay attention to those kinds of things. And if you change your dating approach to, I want to show this person who I am, and hopefully they're going to like me, and I want to bring everything that I can and look really good, and instead you flip it to saying to yourself before you read that profile, connect with that person, go on that date, and you say, okay, what did I want? What am I looking for? Who am I? What do I bring to the table? And what am I wanting back with and from a person? Well, then when you're with that person, you will automatically hear, see, feel anything that may be a conflict or is a direct conflict, which gives you the information to be able to ask another question, dig a little deeper, or if it's really vague and you're not sure, you can just file the information for later until you get more and you have better clarity later on.
So you bring up a really valid point. One of the things I'm always telling my clients is seeing isn't always seeing with your eyes. I think, and it's also like listening. When you're listening, it's also listening with your eyes. It's part of the feeling, intuition. It's like when you said when we're reading the profile, that little, like you said, that twitch, whether it be in your eye or that feeling in your heart, I call it all seeing. We really need to get really masterful at really feeling, and I mean really feeling with everything, with our eyes, with our ears, with our heart. And I think when you're doing that, you're going to pick up, you're going to feel things on all different levels. You are going to read between those lines, if you will, when you are reading that profile. You are going to sense things that you wouldn't normally sense. So I think we just really need to start really getting inside there and really seeing between those lines.
Absolutely. And it really comes down to making what you want a priority and believing that you can have it. Because if you feel like, oh, it's not really there for me, or it's going to be really hard, or you get into that place where as much as you might want it to happen right now, you don't have that patience, that's when you get into trouble, because then you're looking for that person to be wonderful and be everything that you want that person to be, which makes it very easy for you to rationalize all those little things that you're picking up. And if you think about it, I haven't met with a person as a client, friend, or even just seen stuff on TV Or I mean, I love Dateline, Dateline Junkie, right? You watch Dateline and you will always see them saying, well, when I thought back, you know, that hindsight 2020, I did remember this, and I did remember this, and I did remember that. There's always these things that you took notice of in the moment, and for whatever reason, you rationalize them away. And that's why it's so important to ask yourself, look, if I know without a doubt that if I pass on the person that is really not bringing to the table what I want, that I can get what I do want, how much better would you be at really listening and making sure that you honor whatever it is that you're taking in, that either is a fit, it relates, or it totally conflicts, or somewhere on that spectrum that's just not really what you're looking for.
I think the other thing that's really important is, like we were talking about earlier, let's get back to dating, let's go back to the famous aspects of this. I think it's like no different than when we're dating CEOs or people you're talking about their travel. I think a lot of people, when you get involved in these situations, is that they're not, if you do want to be with someone that's like, let's say, you are into it because of it's the money or it's the fame. You also have to get realistic on, let's say they are going to be traveling. I really get tired of hearing women, and I'm not just saying women, it could be men. I don't care who it is, if it's the man or the woman. If you are given a situation where someone's traveling all the time, and then you're complaining because they're not home all the time, it's like I really get tired of people whining when let's say they are getting their jewels, they are getting the traveling and the pampering, all this, and then they're complaining because someone's not there. It's like if you are going to want a certain lifestyle, then you have to get really clear with yourself that the person isn't going to be there for you on those other levels. And so I always tell people in those situations, then create a life for yourself when they're not there. And I've been in those situations because I did grow up overseas, and I have been in those situations. And what I did for myself, I created a life for myself. So it's like you can't have it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And if you are going to be in situations and you really do love somebody and you do love that lifestyle, then create a life for yourself. Go find your hobby. Go find your passion within that. But you can't complain and then want something. It's like you said, you got to get really, really clear on what it is that you want. But you just can't have it both ways and then complain about it.
Right, and what I would say is for that person, they didn't really get what they wanted. That's why they're complaining. Mm-hmm. They think they got what they wanted because they looked at one aspect of it, and then they filled it in and decided that the rest of the picture was just going to magically be wonderful. But see, that's the thing. I had this Charlieism in my first book, and I was talking about how the bones, they create the stock, but they don't, it's still about the ingredients that make the overall soup, you know what I mean? And the bones lots of times are a person's job or resume or financial level or status, and maybe it's even all the good qualities they have, which could be outstanding. The reality, though, is that your day-to-day life is what makes up the larger experience. And that's why you have to look at what does the day-to-day life look like. There are plenty of people who are successful and still go to an office every day and come home at night, and then there are others who have to be on the road for any number of days during the year. So it's up to you to say, how much time do I want to spend with my partner? That means no matter who that person is, if it means that they're going to be gone a huge chunk of the time and you're somebody who wants to sit down and cuddle up and have popcorn and watch movie of the week every night, look further. That's not the partner for you.
Right, and that's why I'm saying they got really crystal clear, because some people actually like having their own alone time. I mean, there's some people that actually thrive on having, like literally having two lives, where they have, their months with their partner and they have their months of their alone time. And that, like you said, you just have to get really crystal clear on what type of relationship you want. Like you said, if you're the type of person who wants to cuddle up and have that alone popcorn time, having a partner that travels a lot is just not going to be a partner for you. So you really need to get crystal clear on what that relationship looks like for you. And I think those tips, can you actually say some of those Charlie tips, or actually I'd love to hear some about those you were talking about the raw tips that you have.
Oh yes, my raw, well, I have this new feature, Raw and Delicious, and it's really about recycling the raw aspects of life into delicious life experiences, because no matter what we do, we should make it count, right? Whether it's a tough lesson, whether it's a breakup, it's a divorce, it's just, oop, I tried this business and I got to start over again. The reality is, if we look at it from the vantage point of recycling it into something else, then we get the most out of that experience, because it already happened. We can't undo it. So some of the things that I've been bringing up, I actually have some great feng shui tips that are coming up, and I just released a video today on front door, and I know you are very much all about the energy, and you understand how everything is energy and it's always coming at us. And so we did a thing on the front door and how important your front door is. So one of those little tips I'll just tell right now is, a lot of people, you know, probably some of you out there, you come in through your garage door, you come in through a side door, and that's just your normal thing. Well, energetically, the prosperity that you bring in through the front door is all new. What comes in through the side door or the garage door is old. So how that relates to your bottom line is that if you're always coming in through the garage door or through the side door, you're only activating energy from things that were already started or old. If you want a new job, or you know, some sort of new opportunity, or new love, new friends, anything that's coming in new, that's brand new, can only come through the front door. So if you do have, like me, I come in through my garage all the time, but I make sure that every day I go out my front door and get my mail. Instead of just pulling up and picking it up with my car, I will go out the front door just to activate it. And you don't need to do it every single day, but that's just one example how you make sure you're activating new energy to come in the front door, just like all those things that you already invested in, you're activating all the time to bring you more from those old projects.
Oh, I love the fact that you brought up Feng Shui, because it is one of my favorite topics. I'm always talking to my clients about Feng Shui, and one of my biggest things I'm always talking to them about is clutter. They don't understand how clutter impacts, and you're right, front door energy is so important, especially when you walk in the front door. What is around your front door? If you walk in your front door and there's just clutter everywhere, it is literally going to affect your bottom line. Your front door entrance, when you walk in, has to be so inviting and just so welcoming. It just cannot be full of clutter when you walk in the door. And it's so important. Our environment, it has to be welcoming. It has to be, you think about, as she was talking about energy is something that, whether we know it or not, it needs to flow. And if there's just clutter pockets everywhere, the energy it can't flow. It just literally ping-pongs off of things instead of flowing. So thank you for bringing that up. It is one of my favorite subjects.
Oh, excellent. Well, you'll love them. Donna Stellhorn is a best-selling author and expert in Feng Shui. She's a really good friend of mine. She's been doing my spaces for me for the last 14 years. Every time I move, the first thing I do is send her pictures and say, okay, what do I need to do? And she's going to be talking about what a poison arrow is, which is really important, because a lot of people don't realize when they are dressing up the front door that they can do things that actually split the energy and split everything that's coming in half, which you don't want to do. So those are some of the tips that I'm giving, in addition to, of course, relationship stuff. And then I have a great cleanse on there that's fantastic for, of course, in the summertime when we're on vacation and we're doing all the barbecues, and then we just want to do a kind of quick, safe slim down that's not anything drastic. I have some of those on there as well.
Actually, I love the title of your older book, Thank Goodness You Dumped His Ass. Can you actually just give someone a little bit of a synopsis on that book? Because I love the title of that one. And I know we haven't talked about that one.
Oh, absolutely. Thank goodness you dumped his ass. Use those Mr. Wrongs to lead you straight to Mr. Right is literally the modern gal's strategic business handbook on attracting relationships. It covers things from two different sides, too, because I wrote this book after I went through my divorce and got into another relationship that was really great. And it was the big thing about it was, what are the things that get in our way as women? Well, there's the baggage side and projecting things from the past that we haven't resolved onto new potential romances. And then there's just the not really identifying what it is you're looking for, so that you're not choosing the kind of partner that's really the best partner for you. So I attacked it from both angles. And first of all, it's like, how do we position ourselves as women to attract what we want and have a fabulous relationship? And I go right through those points. Some of them, making sure that you understand that you're working from a place of motivation and not desperation, so that your assessments are proper and your awareness is on target and you're using your intuition like we were talking about earlier. And then really identifying what it is you want to experience day to day in the relationship, beyond the dinners out and the travel, because that's great with almost anybody, but it's the day-to-day stuff that makes the biggest difference. Then the second part of the book is really recycling those previous relationships for the insightful goal that's going to help you make the corrections you need to make to get what you want. Because we always say hindsight's 20/20, and as time goes on, we start remembering more and more about the ex and say, oh yeah, I remember this, but that doesn't serve you. Which serves you is to figure out, well, who were you and why did you choose that person? And I always say that emotional baggage is just the accumulations of lessons that are not yet learned or understood. Once you figure out what they are, you can let go of it. And so that's really the idea behind recycling those previous relationships, because then you don't feel like you wasted your time, which is one reason why women tend to get resentful, is they feel like they wasted time. When you actually strategically comb through for those awesome pieces of information that help you and propel you forward, then you feel like the relationship served you no matter how good, bad, or indifferent it was, and at the same time, the baggage is gone, you've integrated it, and you've taken those pieces so that you can go forward and get what you want.
So I would love for you to leave 3 amazing tips for women on how to be straightforward with men, and also I would love for you to leave 3 tips for men. So what would be 3 tips for both men and women?
Okay, 3 tips for men and women. Well, they're actually pretty similar. First of all, you have to start by giving yourself permission to really be who you are and get what you want. And so when we look at empowerment, empowerment is really about giving yourself permission to be honest about what it is that you want and attract it as you go about the business of living your life. If you can't be honest about the relationship that you really want to have, then you're already starting off on the wrong foot. So give yourself that power of sitting down and saying, what's the experience I'm really, really looking for? Second tip, you better figure out what you bring to the table. And this is important because you need to know your good qualities, and you need to also own those weaknesses and tendencies that you have. First of all, when you own those as well, you can figure out how to work with them so that they don't get in your way. And the other thing is you need to be really honest about who you are and where you might need to make a few adjustments or shifts or remodel. Because, you know, if you're shooting for the star, or what I say, if you're shooting for the stars and you don't really want to give much back, then you're probably going to be single for many moons to come, right? So the third tip I would say is live your life with enthusiasm, because there's nothing more sexy and attractive than a person who just loves life and is interesting. And what makes you interesting is the fact that you're interested in life and that you're actually engaging in it. If you're sitting around waiting for someone else to do all the things that you want to do, then all you're bringing to a relationship is space that needs to be filled, which can feel very stressful to another person. But when you're bringing adventure and you're just saying, hey, this is all that I have and that I can share with you, and what are you bringing and what can we now make that's going to be exponentially bigger, now you're really talking.
And then what would be 3 wonderful tips, I would say, about the internet dating world? Because you and I have actually talked about that. And I actually, you know what? I know I'm definitely going to have you back on the internet dating world. So let's leave with 3 tips on the internet dating world, because that is such an amazing topic that people aren't really brutally honest about.
Yes. Okay, internet dating.
I know. I think you and I are definitely having a whole nother segment just on internet dating.
It's so much fun. I mean, it really is so much fun. And, you know, the first thing for internet dating is that first tip number 1, recognize it for the tool that it is. It is just like the hammer you need when you got to put a nail in the wall to hang that beautiful picture. It's a tool. So it's all in how you use it. If you don't set it up right and bang, you hit yourself on the thumb, that's you, right? You held the hammer. It's the same thing with online dating. So you've got to recognize that all it is a resource, it's a tool, and it's how you go about it. So that way that you can begin from a place of accountability and awareness. Second tip, don't lie. I know you think that guy that you looked at, you know, he said he was only going to go up to this age and you're technically beyond that age and you just want him to check you out. But you got to understand, First of all, a guy who is not willing, you could still wink him, you could still send him an email. If he, based solely on the age in your profile, says, I don't want to talk to her, trust me, you just did yourself a favor and saved yourself time. You should never have to chase anyone for them to give you any kind of attention, whether it's online or offline. So don't lie, because the only thing that you do when you lie is you have right from the get-go, because at some point, if it goes anywhere or starts to go anywhere, you're going to have to admit what you lied about. And then you've already planted that seed that you might have just lied about one thing, or you may be an untrustworthy person. Don't start a relationship off on lies when, especially, typically the number one thing that you want from someone else is honesty, okay? You're basically being what you're saying you don't want, so don't do that. The third thing, this is just going in another direction, okay? Because I've already talked about being clear about what you want and all that kind of stuff. Pictures. Come on, okay? Ladies, skip the porno pictures. You don't need to serve your breasts up like bakery rolls. Come on. Have a little bit of mystery. It's great to show a little neckline. It says, you know, that you are open, but you don't need to put yourself out so provocatively that you're attracting men who just think they're going to be able to sleep with you on the first date. And men, what I see from you guys, this is just the tips, you know, for good. Skip those mug shots. You know what I mean? I don't care if you go into the office and have somebody take a picture with the iPhone. It'll be a great picture of you. But when you do those pictures where you're kind of like looking down and the camera's in this weird place and it's really cloudy, it makes you look really scary. And you could just be an amazing guy, and if we see that picture, we're just going to be like, oh my gosh, no, 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 no.
Okay, so two things you said that I absolutely 100% agree with. One is, my God, if you're going to lie about your age, what I've said already way before in the show is what else you're willing to lie about. I can't believe people still do that. And two, seriously, get a decent picture. And honestly, totally agree about the pornography pictures. Honestly, I don't get it. I mean, just really get some decent pictures. And yeah, we're totally doing a whole nother segment about online dating, because that is like literally Pandora's box. It is a can of worms that we could go on forever about. It's just crazy. And also, I would love for you to leave, because we are going to be ending this. So I would love for you also leave, because you actually obviously just wrote a book about this. 3 tips for people that do want to date people that are really successful, because it can be really stressful. So what are 3 really good tips for people that do want to date people that are extremely successful?
The first thing I would say is, I hope that if you're dating someone who's extremely successful, it's because you're really attracted to that person and not just attracted to the lifestyle. Because if you're just attracted to the idea of dating someone successful, that would be a really good thing for you to explore with yourself and say, well, am I insecure and looking for validation through somebody else's status? And the reason why I say that is because if that is the case, you will find yourself, once you get in the relationship, incredibly intimidated by all the attention that that person gets, and it will magnify your feeling of, you know, not being important enough, not being good enough, or the insecurities that you have. They will be absolutely magnified by that lifestyle. So make sure that it's just about that person. Now, that said, you like somebody who happens to be famous, well, it's like anything else. You have to look at yourself first and say, what's the experience that I want to have in this relationship? And then when you look at, you know, how their lifestyle is and what does that mean for your lifestyle, because it's going to become a joint lifestyle. So ask yourself and really explore, what are the things that will be entailed in that, and then make sure that you're good with them. A third thing is make sure, again, that you're able to connect with that person individually, because ultimately that's what they want and that's what they deserve, just like you deserve the same thing. So it's very, very important that you are able to see beyond that status or that name so that you can truly be a supportive person and not make them feel like they need to be on, rather than being able to be the whole person that they are when they're with you.
What I would like to add to that is, one of the things, the first thing you said is, it's going to actually amplify not just your insecurities, it's going to amplify jealousy that'll come out in you. That's what I've seen. And the other thing is, you need to be someone that can be extremely secure in yourself. when you're with someone that is extremely successful, or because they're going to be constantly in the limelight, they're going to be constantly having pictures taken of them. You have to be extremely secure in yourself that when they are getting all the attention, that it doesn't diminish you, or that you're okay with them getting all that. It's kind of interesting watching that whole dynamic, and people literally spin out of control and getting all jealous, and planting that seed in their heads about, you and I can go on this subject forever in terms of people, they're cheating and the whole jealousy aspects, but that's a whole nother show. But anyways, it's just been absolutely amazing having you on the show, and I'm so thrilled that we finally got to do this after a long year of back and forth emails. Anyways, I am definitely going to be having you on again, and I really look forward to that. And as usual, everybody, I really look forward to your feedback as always, and look forward to any comments you have on wanting to hear about any other subjects. And I will be putting out a link again with a full embedded video and podcast, and we look forward to having you again. So thank you, everybody, and then I look forward to having this conversation once again. Have a great day, everyone.